So I was due on Saturday, January 21st, and on the Thursday before that, I started to have contractions that evening. They were spread apart. I didn't really think I was going into labor, but then they were consistent all night, so about every 10 minutes all night. We woke up on Friday morning and we had a doctor's appointment. So we were on the way to see the doctor, and then my contractions stopped when we got there. He checked me. I was 1 centimeter dilated and 70% effaced. He told me I would probably have the baby in the next 2 days or so. Nothing really changed from the week before as far as how dilated I was. So I was kind of worried. I had acupuncture that day. That evening I started to have some contractions that were spread out again. Early Saturday morning, the day that I was due, I started to have more contractions. They were getting closer together, and we were told by our OB to go to the hospital when they were, when we had, what was it, the 511 rule. So I was having those, and I spent a lot of time in the shower due to the pain. It was getting more consistent, it was getting more painful, so I asked him to call our doula and have her come over. So she got there about an hour later.
When she arrived, then that's when they started to expand out a little more to about like 8 to 10 minutes, and that's when I think the process really started to get more drawn out.
Yeah, so I labored all day that Saturday that I was due, and then it was pretty much marathon. I was just taking it one contraction at a time. So massage and breathing and things like that were helping, but as it got later, it stopped helping.
Yeah.
So I was just...
The whole massaging the back, she didn't want it.
Yeah.
She was like, don't touch me, don't touch me. Everything was like hypersensitive.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of eating too, trying to like keep her nourished, she ended up just eating honey. So every now and then we gave her like a spoonful of honey just to kind of keep her energy going. And then just lots and lots of water throughout that whole process.
The contractions still weren't getting closer together. They were still like 6, 7, 10 minutes apart, and then sometimes it would go to 3 minutes apart. The doula was doing different things. We were bouncing on a ball, we were squatting, we were doing different things at home. And she said, you know, why don't you guys just cuddle in bed? And hopefully that'll release the hormones to get the contractions going. And she went and rested in the living room. The contractions weren't getting closer together, but they were getting really strong. It was about 2 in the morning when I felt like I really wanted to push. So I went and told the doula, you know, I think I just have an urge to push. So she said, okay, you know, we should head over to the hospital. It doesn't matter how far apart your contractions are, let's just go. If you have that urge, we should get you there soon. The doula told me later that she could hear it in the way that I was groaning towards the end. She's like, those were 8 centimeter groans. So she, you know, even though it didn't make sense for me to be that far along because of how far apart my contractions were, she knew, you know, when we got to the hospital that I would at least be like a 6 or 7, she was guessing. We got to the hospital at 2:30 in the morning. I got checked by the triage nurse, and I was at 8 centimeters dilated when I got there. And then I stood up from the bed and I was leaking fluid everywhere. So I was telling them, you know, I think I'm either peeing or something's going on down there. So they told me that my water broke. They got me into a room, and by the time I got there, I was 10 centimeters dilated. So we were ready to go and start pushing. It took about 2.5 hours of pushing, but my contractions were still 7 to 10 minutes apart. He had decels, so his heart rate would drop every time the contraction came, and he had a little trouble recovering from that. When normally, you know, during that stage of labor, contractions are about 2 to 3 minutes apart. Mine were 7 to 10, and my body just allowed him to recover. Yeah.
Which was crazy because it like naturally knew to allow him to recover.
Yeah.
And it was it's weird because we would go through this intense, contraction, and then everyone can kind of just rest.
Yeah, everyone was just chit-chatting, like looking at their phones and doing things between the contractions. But he was born at 5:02 on Sunday, the 22nd of January. And
Yeah.
that was it. So I tried to lay down in between the contractions, and I had my little ritual. So every time I had a contraction, I would go get up from the bed and then walk to our bathroom.
And then the moaning.
Yeah, and there was deep moaning. I was trying to do what I learned. At one point, I had a contraction. It was really painful, and I just said, "Ouch!" And the doula kind of had me refocus, and she told me instead of "ouch," say "ooh," so that I'm not associating. Ouch is like a sign of pain, and it sends a message to my brain, and then I'm just gonna keep anticipating the pain. So she said to say "ooh" instead, so I started doing that, and I spent a lot of time in the shower. So every time I had a contraction, I was trying to use all of the methods that we learned to deal with the pain. But the best thing for me was to stand in the shower. So I was in there. I would get dressed and then get back in the shower an hour later. So
Scented candles actually helped out a lot.
yeah, the candles.
Yeah. That was big.
And just being dark. He created a playlist prior to me delivering, or prior to me going into labor, and it was music that I requested that I wanted to be played while I was in labor and at the hospital.
Relaxing music.
Yeah, and it got to a point where the contractions were getting stronger, so he said, should I play the playlist? And I just wanted complete silence, so I'm like, no. And he spent all this time compiling a list of music for me, but I just didn't want it. I wanted it to be silent. I wanted it to be dark. I wanted just to be in the bedroom. I didn't want to go anywhere else in the house. And I also had just things that I would repeat in my mind. So a few of the things were every time I had a contraction, I would think it's bringing me closer to my baby. Or I would think my body is doing everything that it's supposed to do right now. And I kept thinking it's temporary. I thought I want to stay at home as long as possible because I desired the least amount of interventions. I feel like if we went to the hospital when we thought we were supposed to go, then they would have said there was failure to progress, so they would have given me Pitocin, and then when it came closer, after transition, and when it came closer to me having to push him out, and they saw the D cells, I feel like they would have said, the baby's in distress, we need to get him out now, and then sent me to the OR. I was really happy that we stayed home. I was really happy with the way everything turned out. It's weird because I wouldn't be able to describe the pain now. If some people ask what's the pain like, and I don't know how to describe it. It was definitely a 10 plus, but it's possible to go through it, to get through it. And the thing that was helpful too for me was just reading a lot of stories of women that have gone through the same thing, and seeing that other women have done it without, interventions. It was just a really good experience. Even though the labor was long, I just really was happy with my experience.